Welcome to the official ranking of all the Bridgerton couples. Note, this is a ranking of the book versions of the main couples. Unlike the solo rankings, this ranking is not based on how good they are as people individually, but based on how well they work as a couple, how well they work together as a team. But because all of the couples are so well matched, it is kind of hard to rank them based on that, and so you might see my preference and dislike for tropes coming in. Coming in at last place, we have Benedict Bridgerton and Sophie Beckett. I love Sophie Beckett. I hate Benedict Bridgerton. When I say that most of the couples are evenly matched, this is what I mean. This is the exception, because Sophie Beckett could do so much better than Benedict Bridgerton. I also think it doesn't help that my least favorite trope used in romance is love at first sight. And I don't mean like, ooh, I fancy her. I mean like blinding, besotted, you are the love of my life at first sight, without even having a conversation. I don't really get it. But yeah, the majority of their relationship leading up to them getting together was Benedict hating the fact that she's poor and Sophie hating the fact that she's poor because Benedict hates that she's poor. I can see Sophie being a good influence on Benedict. I can't really see it in practice because even in the later books he's still a bit of a dweeb, but I cannot see Benedict being a good influence on Sophie. Hence, last place. Next up, we have Daphne and Simon. Daphne and Simon definitely help each other grow, but the way they do it, the way they get to that outcome and that level of growth is incredibly toxic. Simon purposefully keeps Daphne in the dark about intimate details of their marital relationship. He doesn't want her to know. He doesn't want her to get wise to the fact and understand what is actually going on. And Daphne exploits Simon in the night and kind of like uses that to her advantage so that she can actually get the truth. And they just don't communicate in a healthy way. But they definitely help each other grow, which is why they're above Benedict and Sophie. And their later life is actually quite stable, and it's quite nice and not as toxic as the beginning, but the beginning is very toxic. Next up, perhaps a controversial one, Anthony and Kate. Anthony and Kate end up growing into one of the strongest and most stable and powerful couples in the whole series, but their beginnings were a little rough. I really love Enemies to Lovers. I think it's really entertaining and really engaging, but the thought of living through it sounds like hell. Both Anthony and Kate, but especially Anthony, are aware of their feelings. They are aware of how they're feeling for the other person, but they're repressing their feelings based on some greater good purpose that they're using as an excuse. They don't want to feel the way they're feeling, so they are essentially punishing themselves, which punishes the other person. And later on, they turn this competitive spirit into like more of a game between the two of them, and they're both aware that it is just a game and that they do love each other. But at the beginning, that awareness wasn't there. And when ranking them as a pairing, I'm always drawn back to that scene in Anthony's office where Kate is hiding from the party and Anthony discovers her. And he kisses her, and it's kind of forcefully, but not that forcefully because she does enjoy it. But there's something kind of violent about the scene. There's something punishing about it because they are punishing each other, because they're punishing themselves, and because they're almost trying to outdo each other in a humiliating way that isn't healthy, because neither of them are actually aware of what the other is thinking. In fifth place, we have Eloise and Philip. The reason Eloise and Philip are so high up on this ranking is mainly down to Eloise and how Eloise is so good at communicating and so good at setting boundaries and being clear in what she wants out of a relationship and what she wants Philip to bring to the table. And Philip has his faults. Philip has so many faults that he is trying to do better with, but the whole point is he's trying to do better. And I know a lot of people have complaints that it takes him a while to really come to terms with it, and like he doesn't actually want to do better at the beginning. But I will remind you, this book takes place over 2 weeks. Just 2 weeks. He is willing to upheaval his whole life and to change his entire perspective on the world because in 2 weeks' time, Eloise Bridgerton has come in, he has fallen in love with her, and he has realized that what she is suggesting is definitely for the better of his life and for his children's life. I do wish we actually got to see Eloise and Philip grow beyond their book, because it was such a short space of time that was set in their book. It was only 2 weeks. We only really saw the beginnings of them growing as a pairing, but it was such a strong foundation that they built that I truly believe that they will be such a strong team. Because immediately they were listening to what the other person wanted. Even if it wasn't what they wanted, they were willing to compromise. And that is kind of the basis, I think, think of any really successful relationship. Next, we have Gregory and Lucy. Gregory and Lucy are probably the most opposites attract couple on this list. Lucy is the most practical of all of the characters, and Gregory is the most unhinged of all of the characters, and they balance each other out so well. And there's a risk with opposites attract where you're reading it and you think, no, they're actually just too different. They wouldn't work. I don't understand why we're trying to force these two together and pretend that they actually do work. Gregory and Lucy, I can see why they work. I can see why they actually operate well as a couple. Gregory is an idealist and Lucy is a realist. And Lucy is able to bring Gregory back down to earth when his dreams go a little bit too high. And Gregory similarly is able to expand Lucy's worldview and expand her dreams a little bit beyond just settling. And they would be higher on this list if it weren't for, Gregory kidnapping Lucy from her party and not really listening to her when she told him to let her go and tying her to a water basin, which again was all for the greater good, sure, but also Lucy was very much repressing her feelings for the longest time for the greater good. She had more of a reason than any of these dimwits, but still. Finally up to the podium, and in third place we have Francesca and Michael. Francesca and Michael are the most different from all the other characters in the Bridgerton series. They are both introverted, and I don't actually think that anyone other than maybe Philip and Simon are actually introverted in the series. And the reason they're so high up on this ranking is because they have this beautiful, quiet understanding of each other. They understand each other's journeys, they understand each other's grief, and they understand each other in a way that no one else can. And there's something so beautiful about that literal two souls in harmony idea. Michael is so patient with Francesca, and the only reason they're not higher up on this list is because Francesca could have been a bit more open with Michael. Her communication skills weren't amazing. And coming in at second place, we have Hyacinth and Gareth. You may be getting an idea of this from this list, but one of my least favorite tropes is someone repressing their true feelings for the greater good because they believe it will benefit society and the world and everyone around them, when really it's just punishing themselves and punishing the other person. And by that, I'm referring to would never marry below his station, would rather die than marry Daphne, and would prefer to marry Kate's sister instead. Gareth and Hyacinth never had that issue. They were always so clear and so open and so honest with their motives and their intentions towards each other. Hyacinth realizes pretty early on that it's Gareth that she wants to be with. She has this quiet realization of, oh, this is the man I want to marry. Not even I have a crush on him or I fancy him. It's no, I'm going to marry him. He just needs to catch up. And Gareth does catch up. Within a few days, he realizes, actually, I do want to marry her. I actually really like her, and I think a life with her would be amazing. And within an hour, he has gone to Anthony, asked for his permission to marry Hyacinth, and gone back to Hyacinth and proposed. But more than that, they are so good as a team. They trust each other and they rely on each other, even when they're in quite dangerous situations. And yes, they do have fear for the other person, but that fear never outweighs the trust they have for one another. They never have moments of miscommunication or crossed lines because they understand each other so well. Even when Gareth is almost trying to manipulate Hyacinth, she doesn't buy it because she knows him well enough to know that there's something deeper going on. And in first place, hopefully to no one's surprise, Colin and Penelope. There is very little that could be said or done to get me to remove Colin and Penelope from the top spot. They're definitely helped by the fact that they have such a long grounding of a relationship before they get together. They've known each other for over a decade. They've been friends for just as long, and they understand each other so well because of it. They also never have any shame or repression of their true feelings towards each other. Penelope has been in love with Colin for years, yes, and she's never voiced these feelings, but that's because of insecurities that society and the Ton and her family have imparted on her. So she doesn't actually feel that she is good enough for Colin, but she's not punishing herself because she's not removing Colin from her life. She's still keeping him as a friend. She's still keeping him as a close person to her. So there's no punishing involved. But Colin, the second he realizes that he loves Penelope, that what he feels is love, he proposes immediately and he wants to shout it from the rooftops. But the main reason they are at the top spot is because they help each other grow outside of their relationship. For the majority of the series, Colin has been kind of lost and aimless until Penelope encourages him to pursue writing as a purpose. This thing that he has always loved but never really knew could be more, which is very similar to how it was with Penelope. And Colin encourages Penelope to take pride in her position as Lady Whistledown. He wants her to be able to boast it in front of society. He's fearful of what that means and if she could get attacked, but he wants her to be proud of it. He wants her to own her accomplishment. And then he encourages her to pursue writing even afterwards. They communicate brilliantly. They are are openly proud and besotted with each other, and they constantly challenge each other to become the best versions of themselves. And that is why they are in the top spot and will be forevermore. Feel free to disagree with me and argue in the comments. I'm sure a lot of you will have a lot of opinions, and that is completely okay, and I completely encourage opinions as long as no one is rude to another person. Couples.
So I think you bring up an excellent point, as you tend to do, Sophie, and since we will never be free from the shackles of this silly summer series, and we will never be free from the Jeremiah cheated narrative, we might as well discuss this, because this is actually exactly why, and I do think it's intentional. Sophie says, if Jenny wrote the rebound in a more explicit, obvious way, would people interpret it in a different way then? The answer is yes, but that wouldn't really serve what I believe was the intended purpose of the Lacey Barone plot. I've talked a lot about how a lot of things in this series are written or presented in a certain way in the show or whatever it is to spark debate. Like, that is the intention. And you see that a lot in love triangles or things that are marketed in a way that you're supposed to pick a side. And I know a lot of people talk about how book 3 was out of character for Jeremiah, or how it was character assassination, and I don't disagree with that entirely. I think there's truth to that. But I have never said or asserted that Jeremiah having rebound segs is out of character or was out of character. I can actually see that, because that's what happens. Like, he is feeling insecure and Belly totally destroys his self-esteem. And she really does. She's awful. She comes for his whole existence. How many times have we shown the receipts? She comes for his whole life, his whole existence. Your fraternity's stupid. You're so selfish. Don't put your inferiority complex on me. And she had been doing that. Tell me it's hard to defend in this book. She really is. Like, she talks about how Jeremiah is such a good boyfriend and he takes such good care of her when she doesn't feel well. He's never disappointed her before. Nobody has ever treated her like he does. And then, like, he tells her that he can't go to this party with her because he has an intramural soccer game, and she says, can't you just miss it? It's not like it's a real game. She gets mad at him for things she never voices. She just, like, loses her ability to communicate in this book for whatever reason. And then, importantly, she also spends Christmas in Cousins with Conrad and lies to him about it. And at this point, he already knows about that, so obviously he's feeling anxious and he's feeling all of this. So they get into this nasty fight and they explicitly break up, because that's exactly what happens. The dialogue is, let's end it now. Belly storms out and says fine, and then she's like, why isn't he running after me? And eventually she realizes, oh, he shouldn't be running after me, and she goes to him and apologizes when he comes back. They explicitly break up, and then Jeremiah goes to Cabo, and Lacey Barone, who is known to be very into him, very thirsty, makes him feel valued and desirable. He has a one-night stand. He's 19 years old. I don't feel like that's out of character. I also don't feel like that's disgusting or makes him like a bad person or means that he doesn't love Belly. And then even he doesn't tell her about it, and that's another gray area. I can see that. I can see why he didn't tell her. He probably just didn't want to mess it up. How do you bring something like that up? It also wasn't significant to him. Was it perfectly good or honest? No. Is he technically obligated? No. Is it unfortunate that Belly had to find out in a bathroom? Yes. Do I think Jeremiah is incapable of doing stuff like this and everything that he ever did wrong would be out of character? No, I can see this. And that doesn't make me love him any less. I get it. But the way that this is told in the story, when we know that they have explicitly broken up, and Belly herself says it, when we broke up in April, Jeremiah cheated on me when we were broken up. No matter how many times she says it, it's still relayed in the story as he cheated on me. It's cheating, it's cheating, it's cheating. So then readers can take it and say, he cheated, he cheated, he cheated. Conrad, who has treated Belly like absolute trash the whole time, gets to White Knight with the Jer cheated on you. And if this didn't happen, then what does Conrad have to White Knight about? And in that sense, of course, it's character assassination of some kind. Because if it wasn't, then what does Conrad have to White Knight about? He's terrible, and Jeremiah has been so much better than him. And obviously, none of us know what's going to happen as far as the show, but the reason that Bonrads are like salivating over this cheating plot happening is because of this, because it's not even a cheating plot. And Conrad just isn't a good love interest, and this gives them something to hold on to. Of course, none of us know what is going to happen in the show. Like, you don't know any better than I do, but why a lot of us feel weird about the whole cheating thing happening in the show is not because we hate that Jeremiah had rebound segs. That doesn't make Conrad look like a better love interest, and it doesn't even make Jeremiah look like a bad one. But the show made the decision to make Jeremiah bi, number one, which we all love in theory, but then they added these odd promiscuous narratives with him where he's like a hookup king. Not that he did anything wrong, but other characters in the show literally salute shame him for it. The point where Bonrad enthusiasts will be like, oh my gosh, Jeremiah cheating is so in character because like he hooked up with a lot of people, as if like hooking up with people while you're single is more likely to make you cheat. If all that was added and him being bi was added, all to implicate him and start his downfall with a quote-unquote cheating plot. It's like, why did you choose to make him bi? That is why a lot of us feel weird about the potential Lacey Barone non-cheating plot, not because we care that Jeremiah had rebound segs, because that's what he did, but because that's weird. Especially when Jeremiah is the only character in the show who has not been involved in some kind of cheating or cheating adjacent situation. Even though I think so much of what happened in We'll Always Have Summer is a bit much and a bit ridiculous, especially stuff like this and other stuff, I don't think Jenny Han hates Jeremiah or anything like that. I think it's intentionally framed by other characters in the story as cheating, even though we know it was not, for that reason. I certainly do not hate Book 3 Jeremiah. I love him, actually. Like, I will be outside that frat house defending him. But a lot of this book does read as a way to make a love interest that wasn't very good look okay in comparison to the love interest that was good the whole time. And I do not believe it achieved that. Jeremiah is still by far the most sympathetic and largely the only sympathetic character in We'll Always Have Summer. Belly and Conrad are only shown to be well suited in that they're both just nasty, and Jeremiah deserves better, which is just sad because I still really do love Jelly, and I really am a Jelly truther, and I didn't even want to be a Belly hater. I wasn't until this book, but man, it is just so hard to defend.
As somebody who went to school for animation, whose dream job for many years was working at Pixar, I don't think I have the words to say how disappointing and depressing this article about the future of Pixar is that came out in Bloomberg yesterday. The gist of the article, as summarized in this tweet, is that Pixar is now focusing on films with clear mass appeal, with less focus on directors' autobiographical tales like Luca and Turning Red. The studio's movies should be less a pursuit of any director's catharsis and instead speak to a commonality of experience. And I read this full article. I had to sign up for an account with fucking Bloomberg just to read the full article. And let me just give you the cliff notes. They're gonna make sequels. They're literally just saying we're mining ourselves for IP. This article is full of like ludicrous contradictions and like ethos that is so antithetical to what Pixar was created on. I'm genuinely very upset right now. And I say this as somebody who is actually really excited for Inside Out 2. I loved the first Inside Out so much. I think that the odd sequel is fine, but this article, it's really bad. This article starts off with this really false heroic narrative of like, thank God someone's come to save the day, to save us from our own grotesque missteps, our horrible failures of Luca, Turning Red, Elemental, and Soul. Now, this article would have you believe that the commonality between those films is that they don't have mass appeal and they're too personal and they're based on the director's personal lives, which is not relatable to general audiences. Stepping aside from the fact that the vast majority of these specific examples center on marginalized experiences and why that might be considered, not mass appeal, but these movies also have another fucking commonality, and that's the pandemic. Honestly, this article barely mentions the pandemic. Instead, it spends an inordinate amount of time trying to find connective tissue between these specific examples so that they can reinforce their narrative of like, oh, there's just something about these specific movies that don't have mass appeal. They go so far as to even make a different excuse for why Lightyear failed, saying that, critics were upset about its dour tone. It was it's IP. They love our IP. It's just that one was a different kind of failure, not related at all to the other ones. Furthermore, this article mentions twice that Elemental specifically had the lowest box office opening of any Pixar title, and never at any point in this article do they mention that it was just the beginning that was lackluster, and Elemental ended up making almost $500 million, which admittedly might not seem like a ton of profit for a movie that cost $200 million, but for an animated film, that's huge. Like, that's absolutely respectable, especially for a film that came out still when audiences were struggling with getting back to theaters post-pandemic. And I say post-pandemic just because that's the term, not because COVID isn't here anymore, just to clarify. This article very explicitly tries to paint the childhood experiences of the directors of Luca and Turning Red and Elemental as just simply being unrelatable. Like, these are just too personal. But then later in the article, they're trying to plug Inside Out 2. They talk about how Pete Docter originally based Inside Out on his own 11-year-old daughter and his experience experience like with her growing up. So like, which is it? Is it good to have personal experiences or bad? Because it seems like only some of them are what you want to call mass appeal. Like, as a longtime Pixar superfan, this article in and of itself just reeks of bullshit. Because, like, kids and adults alike don't love Pixar movies because they're hyper realistic and universally relatable. Like, their stories have consistently pushed boundaries of like subverting expectations and suggesting like different perspectives to specifically younger audiences. Up, for example, when Up was announced, people were like, kids aren't going to relate to a movie about an elderly man. Like Ratatouille, a movie about a fucking rat trying to become a chef. Monsters Inc. is a great example of like intentionally using narrative choices to allow children to like not be afraid because the perspective is so different for them. I'm really genuinely upset because Pixar was something really special. When Toy Story 2 was announced, like Disney was pushing for Toy Story 2. Pixar didn't even really want to make it. They were busy with A Bug's Life. And Disney was like, oh, just make it direct to video. That's how we do it. It's a secret moneymaker. It's like, fine. And Pixar was like, absolutely fucking not. If we're going to do a sequel, we're going to do it with integrity and we're going to do it the right way. But Pixar has always been devoted to telling new and unique stories. So reading this article that basically sums up with them being like, oh, well, you know, this is the most exciting time for Pixar because we get to look through our history and say, what else can we explore that's rehashing material that we already have? No, we don't want to take risks, but our best years are ahead of us. Absolutely. I'm sorry, this is the last paragraph of this article and it's fucking insane. Like, they talk about how there's a scene in Inside Out 2 where nostalgia makes a cameo and they make a joke about it because it's too early in Riley's development, and how this reflects like Pixar's new motto, you know, is there's no point feeling nostalgic about an earlier era if the studio's best pictures are yet to come. How can you sit there with a straight face and tell me that we don't want to harp on nostalgia? Our best years are ahead of us because we're going to harp on nostalgia. What the fuck are you talking about? Listen, I love Pixar. I used to worship Pixar. I am still in awe of their creativity. Their films are some of my favorite media that exists. And I know that there are people that are still there, that have been there from the beginning, that genuinely care. But that is not reflected in this article and in this new direction. Like, nothing about this is coming from a group of people that got together, like willing to take the biggest risks, bet on themselves, and absolutely change the world of American animation with Toy Story in 1995. And if this article really does accurately depict the direction of like the new Pixar, I am genuinely worried.
Cowper is not well off. Cressida Cowper's dad is the one who's well off, and very specifically her dad, because in this time, women didn't actually have access to money. Even if they earned that money, if they had a man who was able to control their lives, that man would be the one responsible for their lives. Like, Cressida Cowper's father was responsible for her life, which is also why Cressida's biggest fear is being married off to one of her dad's friends, because she hasn't been able to find a husband herself yet, and her dad has decided that 3 years is enough. He's taking matters into his own hands, and he's going to handle it from here, and she's just gonna have to be like happy and amicable with whatever one of his decrepit old friends he's going to decide on. Cressida's not going to get any of her daddy's money if she decides that she wants to be a spinster. The only person who's ever going to get that is Eloise. Eloise's family will support her for the rest of her life if she's a spinster. Even Penelope, by being a spinster, that's just her family not caring enough or thinking anyone would possibly want her and not having connections to men in society to be able to go, hey, take this off my hands. And Penelope's mom really secretly just wants someone to keep her company for the rest of her life. So that's why Penelope's not getting married off. But Cressida Cowper could get married off and she would not have anyone to protect her. And the minute that she gets married off, her dowry would go to her husband. Technically, sometimes the dowry is supposed to be like a part of the wife's thing. Like, if the husband signs on and he's like, I'll take this much and you'll get this much allowance, and like there are contracts that are formed, but not always. And it doesn't seem like Cressida's dad is going to be the type of guy who's like, oh, I'll make sure that you have an allowance. And it would still be an allowance, not freedom, not her money, an allowance. Her husband would allow her to have that money so long as he follows her rules, so long as she like follows his instructions, so long as she does everything that he says and is the happy, perfect wife of the tons expectation. So when Cressida Cowper wants to find out who Lady Whistledown is or claim that she's Lady Whistledown, she is doing exactly what Penelope Featherington is doing by being Lady Whistledown. She's trying to take matters into her own hands so that she can have enough money so that she can live on her own in freedom to a certain extent. Because Lady Danbury put a lot of money out there online, like £10,000, which is a huge amount for the time. It's a huge amount now. But if Cressida in this storyline, not a widowed woman who's just trying to like get rid of all of her husband's debts, if Cressida Cowper in this storyline is trying to find Lady Whistledown or be Lady Whistledown, it's because she wants freedom. She wants out from under her dad's thumb, because she's directly under her dad's thumb, and she's been under her dad's thumb for the past 2 seasons, for this season especially. Her parents are always pushing her towards whichever men will be right, will be the right person for her to go for, and she follows her parents' instructions because she doesn't have a choice in anything. A lot of people are saying that it's the self-sabotage of being a lesbian, where she's like, oh, I just don't want, I'm gonna choose the wrong man every season, and it's just like, oh no, like, then I'm not gonna get married again. No, it's not that. It's not because she's choosing the wrong man every season. It's because her parents are choosing for her, and she's going for the person that her parents are actively telling her to go for, because she follows her parents' instructions, because she is their property. Alexa, play the Florence Pugh monologue from Little Women. Like, she's their property. She belongs to them until she can get freedom by getting a husband. Okay, I think nothing I'm more excited about in Bridgerton right now than the fact that Eloise is growing, other than what will happen in the mirror scene and what piece of furniture Penelope and Colin will break. But besides that, there's nothing I'm more excited about than Eloise growing, because every time I just give up on Eloise, like with the first trailer that we got for part 2 of season 3, where Eloise was like, you have until midnight or I'll tell Colin that you're Lady Whistledown. Got it, Penelope? And it seems like she's being evil. And then we see from a new perspective, since the new trailer dropped yesterday, and I didn't get to talk about it because yesterday was very stressful for me, Eloise is literally just going, he can never fully love you until he knows everything about you, which is like actually fair and valid, bestie. Like, great job. And Penelope is like trying to keep this secret because she's absolutely terrified that he's not gonna love her if he knows. And she's like using all of these other excuses of Lady Whistledown is power and Lady Whistledown is something I have to keep and blah 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 blah, and trying to figure out like who she is without Lady Whistledown, basically, if she has to make this decision, because she's thinking that she's gonna have to make this decision. I'm thinking that she's not gonna have to make the decision, and that the queen is actually gonna decide that she really likes Penelope. I think the queen's gonna decide that she really likes Penelope. I really do. But this is something where Eloise, in the first trailer, seems like she's absolutely gonna be the bad guy, and then in the second trailer, we're like, oh my god, maybe Eloise isn't being the bad guy. Maybe Eloise is trying in her own special fucked up way to be a good friend because she wants to make sure their marriage lasts, but the marriage can't last unless they know the truth about everything about each other to a certain extent. And you know what? Fair and valid, Eloise. And this is like how Eloise is going to keep growing, because I've said it before and I'll say it again. Eloise's #1 way of growth this season and the incoming seasons is the fact that she's now realized that her talent in life is like entertaining people, because she'd always accidentally entertain people by being kind of a bitch. But now she's mocking herself, and the self-mocking is A, going to make her realize possibly how mean she can be to others, but B, is going to help her to see how nice other people can be about just being human or being women or being all these other things. And that's how she's going to realize that girls are worthy of, respect. But the thing I'm most excited about is Eloise and her growth, because she's already started growing. She's already started the growing process, and it's slow. It's slow going. It's got to be slow going, because she can't be perfect by the time her season arrives, because that would be pointless. And her season is still a season and a half away. But in the meantime, we're gonna see Eloise mess up, learn, mess up again, and it's gonna be great, because this is gonna be real growth and real learning from like the point of view of someone who's always been very spoiled and is now kind of coming into her own, and that is what makes this exciting. So exciting. So proud of her. Okay, bye. Seeing people compare Eloise telling Penelope that she has to tell Colin that she's Lady Whistledown by midnight, or Eloise will do it for her, to Penelope telling Marina, you've got to tell Colin that you are pregnant with another man's child and that you're not in love with Colin, you're in love with someone else. And these two things are different. I feel like it should be obvious that these two things are different, but people keep saying, well, Like, these two things are different, and people keep saying that they're not, and that instead, Penelope did it to Marina, so I'm totally okay with Eloise doing it to Penelope, and, it was so different. Being pregnant with another man's child is different than being Lady Whistledown. I understand that Lady Whistledown has a lot of power and that Lady with, like, there is a mirror to both of these things, but they are not the same thing, because A, Marina did not actually love Colin. Like, and she made that very clear to Penelope over and over again. B, Marina was pregnant. Penelope is just Lady Whistledown. She could technically stop being Lady Whistledown anytime she wanted. If she decides that she doesn't want to be Lady Whistledown while she's being Colin's wife, she can do that. It's a very different situation. She's not literally, I'm not someone who wants to say the word baby trap, but like this was a literal baby trap situation, especially in that time period. Like it was different than what we would not consider baby trapping, but still, they are different situations. These are not the same thing. And people keep being like, that was already open. That was already open. That was already open. And I just keep seeing people trying to compare them and being like, so I'm okay with Eloise doing it to Penelope. And it just sounds like you're finding new reasons to not like Penelope. That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like, okay? Just wanted to make that clear. Being scared to tell someone who you truly are, which is really what Penelope is afraid of here. Penelope is afraid to tell Colin who she truly is and show her whole self to him, because if she shows her whole self to him and he doesn't like it, then this is A, her last chance, and B, the only man that she's ever actually been interested in. Ever in the history of ever. And that's scary. It's scary. So they're different. Okay. This video really didn't do anything for me. And just really hot. But anyways, they're different.
And this is true. Colin hates Lady Whistledown. Eloise knows that Colin hates Lady Whistledown. Penelope does not fully know that Colin hates Lady Whistledown, but she gets the idea. Eloise wants to tell Colin that Penelope is Lady Whistledown if Penelope does not tell Colin first that she is Lady Whistledown, because Eloise wants Colin to know that Penelope is Lady Whistledown. And yet, somehow, the point of my video was that it's just not a comparable situation to Penelope telling Colin via Lady Whistledown that Marina is pregnant. The point of the previous video is very specifically that the two things are not comparable. Not that one is more right than the other, just that they are not actually a comparable situation when people keep commenting, well, Penelope outed Marina, so I support Eloise for wanting to out Penelope. I didn't even say Eloise was wrong for wanting to out Penelope. I just said you can't compare the two situations because they're different.
I had a bone-chilling nightmare the other night that's been bothering me for a few days now. In the dream, I was in a car with my parents and my boyfriend, and we were driving down a wide, empty stretch of freeway. My dad was playing his favorite music, something by Marillion or IQ or Moody Blues, and my mom was checking her email on her phone. My partner was holding my hand, and I was staring out the passenger side window in the back seat. First, I heard a long whistle. Then, like rain, a million stars came falling behind us from planes, destroying overpasses and igniting the fields nearby in seconds. The quiet, empty world I had always known became very loud all at once. I heard my parents screaming, felt my dad floor the gas pedal, and heard my boyfriend hysterically telling me he loved me in what we knew would be our last moments together. The moment was so real, like my current consciousness was in the body of somebody facing imminent death. Maybe it was because I forgot to take my insomnia medication. Maybe it was because I was sleeping on my left side that night. Maybe it had to do with the phase of the moon. But by the time I turned to see a ball of fire hurtling directly towards us, I found myself thinking of my cats, my partner, my sisters, my parents. I wished more than anything to tell them I loved them just one more time, for just a few extra seconds. And just before the car went up into flames, before everything I knew came to a stop, I realized none of it was actually happening. I woke up, and it was 2 a.m, and it was quiet again. My partner was snoring next to me, my cats were curled up on their perch in the living room window, and my parents and sisters were safe in their homes. I stood alone in my kitchen, illuminated only by the single bulb inside the fridge, and groaned as I realized I forgot the avocados for that night's dinner, so I would have to choose from one of the array of ready-made meals sitting in my freezer instead. I chugged 1, then 2, then 3 glasses of water from the tap in my kitchen and wondered if I should invest in a Brita filter. I adjusted my air conditioner and noted that it was ridiculous not all apartments came with them. I checked that my door was locked and wished to live in a quieter area with less night traffic and cheaper rent. As I crawled back into bed, my cat curling up under the blanket next to me, I found myself terrified of going back to sleep for fear of experiencing another nightmare like the one I just had. Another disruption to the still, moonlit world I had woken up to. I texted my sisters, wishing they didn't both live so far away, terrified at the mere thought of anything happening to either of them, even in my dreams. I turned on an episode of The Office. I contemplated shelling out another few bucks a month so I wouldn't have to deal with the ads, but eventually let the distraction of a show I watched 1,000 times lull me to sleep as I told myself it was all just a nightmare. My family is safe. I'm safe. None of it really happened, right? Not to me, right? People are going to start waking up soon, right? I can't wait for Chapel Roan to sue every single one of you bitches selling AI Chapel Roan t-shirts on here. These shirts have been taking up every single TikTok shop ad in my feed, and they're driving me insane. Because we've already dealt with the copyright issues on this site. I don't know why people still think it's okay to do this. And this specific shirt I've seen getting so popular, and it's so shitty. It's an AI shirt. Like, what is happening? This is an ugly shirt. Why is there a pepperoni just floating? Why is the crust on fire / why does it have hair? Why are you buying this? Why are you buying this if none of the money is going to go to the artist? Why are you buying this if this is illegal to make? This is another AI Chapel Roan shirt that I keep seeing people purchase. Stop buying these. Stop giving these ads your time and attention. This is illegal. And if you are posting TikTok shop ads of these shirts, or of this shirt, or this shirt, or this shirt, any artist merchandise that is not sold through their official merchandise retailer, they will come after you. They can come after you, and they will come after you. You might think that you're free from it right now because they're a big artist and you're a small fish in a big pond. Do not underestimate an artist who wants to get their money's worth. I'm saying this as like a small artist who has people steal their shit all the time. If you're making hundreds, thousands of dollars selling AI Chapel Roan merchandise, she's going to come after you. You are going to get enormous fines. Not only is this shitty to do because you're taking money away from the artist that should be profiting off of it, but I also want to look out for the general public because this is basic copyright law. This is on the first page of Copyright Law 101. You don't do this because you're gonna get in huge trouble. Even if you are not making the shirt, if you are selling this shirt on TikTok Shop, there will be repercussions. I'm begging TikTok Shop to do the mass shop shutdown of all of the copyright violation people again, because this is driving me crazy. I really hate to be a killjoy, but we need to talk about Fully Conscious Baby. No hate to anybody involved. I just think that this is a conversation that we should be having. 1. It's weird to post your child on the internet in nothing but a diaper. We've been having an ongoing conversation about the problems with Jacqueline posting her daughter on the internet. And I'm not saying that there was anything sinister or anything behind the initial 4 Seasons Orlando baby video that was posted and went viral. It's weird to post your baby publicly in nothing but a diaper. This has been a conversation that we have established pretty well on the internet at this point. The videos of babies that are in nothing but diapers that get lots and lots and lots of views and saves. This was a 2-year-old girl wearing nothing but a diaper in a video that went so viral that millions of people have seen it. And a lot of those people are probably not the best people in the world. I'm certain that there are probably some people that they do not want looking at their daughter in a diaper, Even if the vast majority of people think it's really funny, it has ended up in the hands 100% of people who are not looking at it that way. Second of all, in the age of the internet, we are about to see one of two things happen with the Four Seasons Orlando baby. They're either going to the Four Seasons Orlando, they're going to get their vacation, they're probably going to do a couple of interviews, maybe on Ellen, like all the viral kids always do, and then fade into obscurity like the I Like Toidles kids or the I apparently haven't been on television before kid. And they will live on in infamy for the rest of time. Or, because this is social media, it's going to take a turn. And this child is going to be propped up on social media as a social media kid, which I'm already seeing happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if it goes down that road. Like, we've got to stop doing this with kids, y'all. We've got to stop. We've got to put a stop to it. I love the meme as much as the next person. I understand it. I've talked about it even on here. But we need to take a step back. And remember, first of all, this is a real child. That's a 2-year-old. And if you've met a 2-year-old, even if they don't have a whole lot of knowledge about what's going on, they have enough. Like, this is a real human person that we are discussing and talking about and also looking at. And I can't help but wonder if this little child grows up and sees this picture of her wearing nothing but a diaper going viral online, how is she going to feel about it? Because I can't say I would be that pleased if I was a teenager and I found out that a video of me in a diaper had gone viral when I was 2. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. I just thought that I should maybe say something about it. I grew up queer and evangelical, and something that I haven't heard a lot of people say about what happens when you get outed or when you come out in the church is how few people actually believe you. I think a lot of people assume that when you come out in the church, most people are going to be super volatile or pissed off and call you like mean names and stuff, and that does happen. But in my experience, the vast majority of people straight up refused to believe that it was true. They denied it. They straight up don't think that gay people are real. Like, when they say that they think that being gay is a choice, they truly, truly think that one day someone just woke up and was like, I'm gonna suck a dick today. And then they just went out and did it. And that's how being gay works. And I, as somebody who grew up in the closet in the church, thought the same thing. I just thought that everybody felt the same way about everybody that I did. Because I was told that the LGBTQ agenda was a temptation. Like, I assumed that everybody experienced some level of same-sex attraction because we were told it was a temptation. And so when I started navigating my own feelings as a young child, I just thought that I deserved to be hated. And even after I was out of the closet, I kept trying to rededicate myself to God or make announcements to my church that I was a changed person. My faith and religion were the most important things in my life for my entire life until I started grappling with my sexuality and my gender identity, and I realized that there was contention between the two things in my life that made up who I was. And I don't know how to describe the distress of fully knowing that you're queer and in the closet and being terrified of anybody finding out, while simultaneously believing that indulging in any of those parts of your lifestyle will send you to hell, even just researching it. Like, the first time when I was a teenager and I was like researching LGBT things for the first time, I had this conversation with myself before I hit search on Google where I was like, you are damning yourself by doing this. Like, you have to admit to yourself right now that you would rather go to hell than not be your authentic self. So for a number of years, while I was fully believing in heaven and hell, I was also actively making choices that I was confident would damn me eternally. Because even then, I still believed it was a choice. Like, it was so ingrained in my brain. Do you want to know how long it was before I stopped believing I would go to hell for being queer? I was 21. I'm 24 now. So if you try to tell me that religion is not psychological warfare, I will laugh in your face. You guys have got to stop asking me if I'm in the Marauders fandom or suggesting it to me in my comments like it's something I've never heard of before. Cause y'all don't understand. Were you drawing Wolfstar fan art in your school sketchbook with colored pencils and pens in school? Were you drawing Wolfstar fan art in the middle of math class? Because I was. That's what I was doing. That's what I was doing in 2016. Were you spending your free time painting pictures of Sirius Black with acrylic paint? Why does he look like Jesus? I had Tumblr friends in other countries One of them drew a picture of me in Slytherin garb and sent it to me from Australia. This one is not Wolfstar or Marauders, but one of my old friends on Tumblr, Up the Hill Art, was a really popular Harry Potter fan artist, and she used to let me put her art on canvas. So I did her Draco. You guys really don't think I know what the Marauders fandom is? Do not cite the deep magic to me, witch, for I was there when it was written. Hey, so I've talked about my affiliation with the Harry Potter franchise throughout the years on here before. I have multiple viral videos on here talking about how terrible of a writer J.K. Rowling is, as well as how horrible of a person she is, and how we should not be supporting the Harry Potter franchise at all. I myself am not an active member of the Harry Potter fandom anymore at this point in my life, but it was a very important part of my life growing up and really helped me come to terms with my queerness, because the Harry Potter fan community was the first group of people that were queer that I ever met. And in those circles, a decade ago, we were still having these conversations about J.K. Rowling that we're having today. The Harry Potter fandom on Tumblr was very, very critical of her. And what the Marauders fandom and the Drarry fandom and the Hermione fandom and everything outside of the Harry Potter canon became was almost an entirely separate franchise from the original Harry Potter books. If you don't know anything about the Marauders fandom, it's actually insane how much lore there is, how much canon there is to the Marauders fandom that isn't actually canon. Like, J.K. Rowling has no affiliation with any of that. That is all fan done, and none of the money generated from any of those things goes to J.K. Rowling because it doesn't generate money. And for a lot of people who have been really badly burned by J.K. Rowling being an absolutely horrible person, rewriting all of your beloved characters in a way that makes you feel seen and represented is probably the biggest slap in the face that you could possibly give that woman. Like, one of my friends and I wrote a one-shot about Crabbe, Neville, and Dudley all being trans women and being in a poly triad and just being happy and in love. And it was genuinely one of the sweetest, most fun things to write. And I love it even more knowing how distraught J.K. Rowling would be knowing that that exists. Because we took what she made and turned it into something beautiful, and she will never be able to do that. Hey, queer book nerds. I'm really wanting to diversify my bookshelf. I love queer literature. I read a lot of it. A lot of it is the same. There's like not diversity between a lot of these books. And the more I've read, the more I notice it. This isn't the first time this has been brought up, but the vast majority of queer literature I've come across features 2 cisgender, able-bodied white male leads. And before you roll your eyes at me and go, why do you need every book to have so much representation in it? Because representation is important, and also it's distracting when every single cast of characters in every single book is exactly the same. Like, young male lead, 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 young male lead. Like, there's so many of them, and it is so redundant. And I'm not saying any of those books are bad. Like, Adam Silvera is one of my favorite authors, especially for when I need a good cry. That being said, I'm looking for suggestions to diversify and queerify my bookshelf a little bit more. I'm a big fan of post-apocalyptic stuff and sci-fi and fantasy. I really like dark mystery stuff. Like, Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke is really good. Those are the kind of things I like to read. So if you have any suggestions, I would really like to get some new authors that I have never read before on my shelf. If you are an author and you think you might have written something that is down my aisle, let me know and I will read your book. My to-be-read list only has a couple of things left on it, so I need some suggestions soon. Thank you. Hey, not trying to flame this commenter, but this is the conversation we're having on my page today, I guess. You can previously have been a member of a fandom and not be a part of it anymore. Yes, I still have my copies of the Harry Potter books. I still have my Harry Potter fan theory books that aren't even written by J.K. Rowling. I still have the Draco Malfoy finger puppet that my friend made for me for Christmas one year. I still have my box sets of the books. I still have my little figurines. I still have the stuff that I spent a lot of money on years ago. I'm not presently, actively giving my money, time, and attention to a horrible author. I am allowed to talk about my past experiences with the franchise she created because it was a really big part of my life. And talking about something that you were previously involved with is not the same thing as encouraging people to actively become involved with it right now. I've talked on here in depth at length about how I feel about J.K. Rowling. I've talked about it today. My last 2 videos are about J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter. And I'm getting so many comments today talking about how I shouldn't be talking about this because J.K. Rowling is a terrible person. Yes, I know. I've talked about it on here a lot because Harry Potter was my special interest as an autistic person, and J.K. Rowling being who she was devastating for me. So yeah, I'm asking for suggestions to introduce more diversity and queer literature to my bookshelf. I have also previously spent money on the Harry Potter books. I don't know what you want me to say. I spent money on them. I'm going to hold on to them. I'm not presently giving any more money to her. I don't want to burn them and be wasteful. And me owning them and not doing anything with them doesn't harm anybody. I don't usually get butthurt about comments that nag me about this kind of thing, but I've gotten so many comments about this today. And I'm just kind of upset because I have said so many times on here how I feel about J.K. Rowling, and I got eaten alive for it on here. I got so much hate. I get hate every single day because of the videos I have made criticizing J.K. Rowling and her writing. So I don't want to hear anybody telling me that I'm supporting her. Okay, I'm done. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. If you're wondering why I don't talk about the Marauders fandom on here, this is why.
We're getting Haymitch's games, guys. We're getting Haymitch's games. I woke up less than 10 minutes ago to so many texts from Lefty and a billion comments from you guys. We are getting Haymitch's games. It's coming out in March of 2025. That's 1 human gestation period away. I don't think you understand. Actually, no, you do understand. You know, we've been begging for this for years. I have so many questions. I have so many predictions. I have so many things that I'm already preparing myself for the movie because, yes, it's going to be a movie. You know me and my obsession with Madge and her lore, and so I'm really, really, really excited to learn more about Maisie Donner. And I don't even know what kinds of predictions to make or thoughts to share about this because I'm so excited about it right now. I'm so sorry for how obnoxious I'm going to be leading up to and after and during this experience. I cannot believe this is happening right now. I knew that she was going to probably release more, but I was not expecting Haymitch's games, honestly, to be honest. I'm really, really pleasantly surprised. I thought it would be one of those things that we all beg for but never actually get, and Suzanne! I love you, Suzanne! Now that we know Haymitch's games is actually officially coming to us in book form, we can finally discuss what we think it's going to be about. Okay, here are my predictions for the book. I think it's going to be in third person again, like the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I have a feeling we're going to get some information about what might be happening outside of the arena and what is this character doing and all of that kind of stuff. Because there's also going to be 4 tributes, and we don't really know anything about the other 2 that they were with. Who are the other 2 tributes? Are we going to find anything out about them? Katniss's mom is going to be there. Mrs. Everdeen. You know who else is going to be there? Mr. Everdeen. Do you know who else is going to be there? Peeta's dad, who's in love with Mrs. Everdeen. You guys, I haven't heard anybody talking about that yet. Mr. Everdeen's going to be there. We might meet Mr. Everdeen. Are we going to see their love story start to blossom? Are we going to get that in the book? I don't know. I hope we do. I'm so excited about that. If we get to meet Mr. Everdeen, dude, because I have a feeling that he and Haymitch were buds, friends. I think they knew each other. I don't know if we have any confirmation on whether or not they knew each other, but it was a small town. And they were the same age. We get to meet Mr. Everdeen! Now I know these aren't very deep thoughts about what I think the heart of the story is going to be and all of that, but I haven't gotten that far yet, because I just found this information out less than an hour ago. You can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to be coming at you with more thoughts
a lot more thoughts, so many more thoughts. I'm really sorry for the person I'm becoming.
I'm working on my hypothetical fan cast for the new Hunger Games movie. Playing the role of Haymitch Abernathy, we have Jake T. Austin. I haven't seen a single thing this kid has done since The Fosters, but I know he would pull this role off flawlessly. Plus, he said he left The Fosters because he wanted to get more substantial roles. This would be a substantial role for him. I would love to see it. Playing Mr. Everdeen, Michael Cimino. I haven't seen Michael Cimino in anything other than Love, Victor, but I think he could pull this off. I have no idea if he can sing, but he definitely has the Mr. Everdeen dreaminess. Who would be playing Mrs. Everdeen, do you ask? Lily Reinhart. I think she would do so well in this role. And I need to see her in something other than Riverdale. For once in my life, I think this would be the perfect thing to switch it up a little bit. And who would be playing Mr. Malark, do you ask? Tom Holland, with his hair bleached. First of all, I don't know if it's because of the accent adjacencies or something, but British people always slay when they're put in roles with Appalachian or Southern accents. He would be amazing at it, I'm fully confident, but he also just really encapsulates the Mr. Malark vibe. I really feel like he's Josh Hutcherson adjacent. Like, if he was in a different generation, he could have been Josh Hutcherson's dad. I think it would fit very nicely. Let me know what you think so far. These aren't my final choices. I will be making changes. This is just what I have so far. Okay, bye.